And welcome once again to our few words on the Parsha. This Shabbos, of course, is the Kriyas HaTorah of Parshas Behar, which talks about the Shemitah and Yovel laws. And Shemitah and Yovel laws are laws that are only observed in the land of Israel. They are mitzvos hataluyos ba'aretz, mitzvahs that apply only to the land of Eretz Yisrael. And these unique laws, even though Shemitah today is guarded and watched by many, there are, because according to some, it's only midrabanan today, according to most, it's midrabanan, and consequently, there are certain observances that are permitted in order to enable the land to produce. But if it's the oraisa, if it would be a min haTorah law, a biblical law, there would be a change in the observance of Shemitah, and that can only be when Yovel is operative. And Yovel is only operative when the majority of the Jews in the world live on the land of Israel. And we may see that day soon, speedily in our time, because already there are a large percentage of Jews in Eretz Yisrael that might even soon exceed, if they don't already exceed, the numbers in the United States of America. And when you combine the incoming people to the land of Israel from all other lands, it may well be that the majority of Jews in the world will be residing in Eretz Yisrael, and Yovel will become biblical, and so will Shemitah, and there will have to be some changes made. That being said, if you take a look at the very first pasuk, the second pasuk actually, which it talks about the beginning of the laws of Shemitah, the pasuk says, "Daber el bnei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel, v'amarta aleim, and say to them, ki savo'u el ha'aretz, when you come into the land, asher ani nosein lochem, that I am giving to you, the shavsa ha'aretz Shabbos LaHashem, the land shall rest a Shabbos to Hashem, and just as we rest on Shabbos, so does the land rest on Shabbos." The Majas Rabbi, Zechor Levracha, brings down an interesting, out-of-context idea on the word ani. He says, Ki sava'u el ha'aretz, when you come to the land, asher ani nosein lachem, which I am giving to you, but he translates it, Ki sava'u el ha'aretz, when you will come to the land, asher ani, that I am nosein lachem, giving you an ani. I'm giving you a self-identity. I'm giving you who you are, because the truth is, the Jewish people and who we are only clearly identified by the land of Israel and living in that land and keeping the mitzvahs in that land. Our whole sense of self, so to speak, is only through the land of Israel. I don't have an ani. A Jew does not have a self-identified personality without a connection to the land of Israel. And when we think about our current times, where we just recently celebrated Yom HaAtzmaut, Israeli Independence Day, and we realize that in the past 66 years, the land of Israel has been under the rule of Jewish people, despite the fact that they may not be all that we would hope for, especially in the times of Mashiach, Behar Yameinu, but we know that it is under our sovereignty. It gives us a greater sense of who the ani is. Every one of us here in the United States of America and world over feels more of a sense of being Jewish when we accompany that with our identification with the land of Israel. And it's because of the pride and the awareness that we feel about Artseinu HaKadosha, our holy land, that you and I walk here in the United States with a little more confidence, knowing that there is a land of Israel, and we identify with it in every sense of the word. When we hear, God forbid, about a terrorist attack, like 40 years ago, this week, the Ma'alot massacre, and we remember the 22 young teens that were slaughtered, we feel the ani being attacked. We feel the self being attacked. And when we hear about the great successes of the land of Israel, the overwhelming numbers of medical innovations that are taking place, the high tech, the fact that there's more Torah being learned in the land of Israel today than ever before in the history of the world since the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, we feel a sense of ani being raised, a sense of ani being more accomplished. And that's what the Torah is telling us. Hashem is saying, Ki sovo el ha'aretz, when you come to the land, asher ani nosein lachem. I'm giving you an ani. I'm giving you a sense of identity and a sense of self when you're connected with the land of Israel. How fortunate we are to live in this day and age, a day and age in which generations over the past years couldn't believe anything like this would ever exist, and we are privileged to see it in our time. That's the ani. Have a wonderful Shabbos.